so before me found a foreign, you used to hear a whole heap of people that say, yo, foreign and a bed of roses, would I rather live in Jamaica right now and way. You see me? I used to feel like, say, yo, foreign and all that and whatever the case, just because how people did make it seem. I'm sure a whole heap of people there in Jamaica right now will feel like, say, yo, them better off in Jamaica because everybody really are foreign and complain about this and complain about that. But after living in America for a while now, you can tell us, say, foreign and a bed of roses for true. And it's not easy. But you see, if you come here and say you have ambition and you know what you want out of life, brother, the sky is the limit. You can achieve anything you want out of a place. But it not going to happen overnight. And I think that's the big misunderstanding where most people have. You can't come to America and feel like you're going to pick up your riches off of the ground. Or somebody will just knock your door and say, hey, here's your riches, welcome to America. No, and that's how it works. And I'm not going to let the people not come here rich overnight. Whether they want to do something illegal or they want to win the scratch and win. But in reality, you have to come here and come work for your man, brother. Now, the biggest complaint me hear from people who live in America is the bills, the bills, them. Like, who control the bills? Who control your bills? Who decide what bill to pay? Now, if your bills them more than your income, it simply means you have a problem and you need to change something. So if you drive the latest car, it simply means you need to get something more affordable. If you want a nice apartment, it simply means you need to get a cheaper apartment or share an apartment with somebody and split the bills. You see me? Or even relocate, change state. Enough people come a foreign and them found in New York or Florida and them feel like they must live there for the rest of their life. No, you have 52 states. If the income too low, then find a different job and pay you more. It's simple.
As I look back, I see not being able to go in stores and buy different things that I wanted to buy without a certain look, as if to say, why do you need that, or why do you think you can buy that? And I remember standing in line as I was about to catch the bus to leave town. And once again it was in cramped quarters where the sign said colored and another sign said white. And going to a lunch counter, again in separate quarters and tight quarters, and being served sandwiches, and other people could get full meals. And I remember being asked to move to the back of the bus on my way out of town and into town, and asking why, and being told that it's the law. And I remember seeing sad faces of people who wanted to say, I'm sorry, but were afraid.
I hear Donald Trump say, he's going to do a mass deportation in America. And everywhere I go throughout the internet, I am seeing hundreds of videos with Jamaicans getting nervous. Say, Trump, I'm going to deport them back to Jamaica. I don't like that looking now. And if that should happen, it can be dangerous for Jamaica. Dangerous in the sense of if Trump are going to deport, let's say, maybe hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans back to Jamaica. And the majority are going to go back with two long hands, with nothing. How that are going to work out? You know how much Jamaicans in America where a struggle, where if you put them on a plane right now and send them to Jamaica, they walk out of the airport, they don't know. They don't remember which part to turn garden yard. So how that are going to work out? That are going to cause a lot of problem in a Jamaica. In regards to the crime rate and all kind of thing, the pressure are going to get even rough and tough and tight upon Jamaica. That are going to cause a lot of havoc and decadence in the country. If that should happen. Me not think it is fair, you know. Yes, me not think it is fair. I me think if Trump want to deal with mass deportation, I think him have to go deport himself first. Go back to Ireland and them place there. Where them forward from. Because the only people in America who have 100% rights for America is the indigenous people. Yes, some people can tell me say they left up a you corrupt and go down in America there and eliminate a group of people and took over the country and run through slavery and all them type of thing there and built up that land and now claim it that even the indigenous people them not have no rights in them own land. Me not get it. You know see it. All the world stand by and watch them thing and go on. And I want to say, a good or righteous thing someone do. It was inhumane and unrighteous from the initial stage of this thing when the item forward of America go fire up shots and go out a bag of thing over there and took over people's place. Deport to myself first. Man. Deport back everybody to their land if I saw it go. All of the European them, included Trump, deport myself back to Europe. Who if you go on our Middle East round so? Who if you go down our Caribbean down so? And who if you go around so and go around so? And give back the indigenous people them land. Alright, so.
Living in America and visiting America is two totally different experiences. I've been here 10 years and one thing I've learned is that you have to keep your head by your body and you have to humble yourself. You literally have to walk and be humble as humble can be. You have to keep your head by your body, especially if you don't have any family member or little to no family member to give you the support that you need financially, emotionally, mentally. You get what me I said? The people who live here and been here for years know what me I talk about and understand what me I talk about. America is a country that can make you, it can make you real quick, but it can also break you faster than how it made you. So you have to be wise, be humble, listen, pay attention and take heed.
I'll be honest. No matter how successful I get in America, no matter how successful I get, I never feel like I belong.
Really?
Yeah. Is everything all good? There's nothing all good anywhere on this earth. You got to think deep about it. No matter how successful you become in America, you can live a very comfortable life. Gated community, big, nice house. At the end of the day,
You never belong.
you never belong.
You always be treated as a second-class citizen.
Always.
What do you consider yourself today? Are you American? Are you African? Are you African American? What are you?
I'm an African raised in America. You know, clearly.
So you're not American,
I wish I was, but my mind is not African. I mean, American. It's clearly African.
but you have the accent. You have, you know,
I went to school in America. All my whole earlier childhood, I was raised in Africa. Then I came to America. Every summer, we would go back to Africa for a vacation. And then when I graduated high school, it was a choice whether we wanted to go to Africa or stay in the U.S. And just the opportunities in the U.S. was so much greater than Africa.
Well, you're certainly the perfect example of the American dream coming true. And, you know, what would be your advice to a young African who's immigrating to the United States today?
Ultimately, you can't change who you are. And I think the biggest obstacle is that when people come to the U.S., they kind of alienate their original and they conform to what's there. And when you do that, first of all, you will never get accepted.
But isn't that the best way to integrate?
Absolutely not, because first of all, you can't, it's no way you can move forward and you're not you.
If you, like me, are a born and raised American who doesn't really want to live here anymore, I'm going to do a whole new series explaining everything you need to know, the 101 to moving to a new country. To give you a little bit of background, my husband and I have lived in the UK, Portugal, and the Netherlands using various visa options, and we are moving back abroad next year. Very likely headed back to the Netherlands. So I'm going to walk you through what you need to know about moving abroad on a generic scale and on a very specific scale, because I'm going to document that journey. The first thing I want to talk about in this video is kind of terminology, so that you have a better idea of what you're getting into, because as Americans, even pro-immigration Americans, we don't really grow up knowing much about the different immigration systems and what they mean and how hard it really is to move. Unfortunately, Americans were largely taught that it's pretty easy to move just based on the rhetoric around immigration in this country, and that could not be further from the truth. So I'm going to give you the 101. What is a visa? A visa is basically a passport stamp. It allows you entry into a country. As it stands today, the US has a lot of visa-free reciprocal agreements with a lot of countries, so you may never actually have had to get a visa before traveling to a country, like in the EU, for example. You can just book a ticket, show up, and get your passport stamped. Though that is slightly changing, I believe. If you travel to a country that does not have a reciprocal arrangement with the US, you will have to apply for and receive a visa to enter that country. Now, what does that have to do with immigration? For most countries, you can't just show up in the country and declare your intent to move there. You need to start the residency process from your home country. That means that even for a visa reciprocal country, you may need to apply for an entry visa to enter for purpose of moving. There are a few exceptions to this, which I'll get to in other videos. So again, visa is like a ticket to get into the country. The next term you need to know is a residence permit. A residence permit is what allows you to reside in a country. So the visa got you in, the residence permit is what lets you stay. A lot of times if you've received approval for a visa for the purpose of moving or relocating, you will automatically get or are eligible to apply for a residence permit that you should automatically get, with just a few additional confirmations of paperwork. I just want you to recognize that they are two separate documents. You have, with a residence permit, a right to reside. You are not a citizen of the country. And usually that right to reside is temporary. It could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, but it's usually not the same thing as permanent residency. Permanent residency, think of that like a green card. It allows you to stay in the country for up to 10 years with a lot less scrutiny, but you are still not a citizen. Permanent residency is usually something you can apply for after you've resided in a country for a certain amount of years. If you're a permanent resident, you still can't vote in most countries, and you are still not a citizen. But in a lot of countries, you can be eligible for citizenship by naturalization after several years of continuous residence. Sometimes you need to go through permanent residency first, sometimes you don't. Now, every country is different, the rules are different, the entries are different, the residency is different, the time periods are different, everything is different.
So let's talk about Trump's immigration policies. Imagine trying to build a house of cards in a hurricane. That's what it felt like for many immigrants under the Trump administration. The rules were constantly changing, becoming more restrictive, and the message was clear. Don't come here. The path to citizenship, already a marathon, became an obstacle course designed to trip you up. And let's not forget the fear. Suddenly, the American dream, the one they'd been chasing for so long, started to feel more like a nightmare. So if America wasn't it, then where was? Now, let's be real, America's never had the cleanest track record on race relations, but under Trump, it felt like someone opened a Pandora's box of prejudice. Suddenly, it was open season on anyone who wasn't white and wearing a MAGA hat. For black communities, including Jamaicans, it was a harsh reminder of the racism that never really went away. It was in the casual microaggressions, the blatant discrimination, the fear of being profiled by the police. This rise in racial tension made many Jamaicans question their place in American society. Was this really a place where they could truly belong, where their children could thrive? For some, the answer was a painful but clear no. They were tired of fighting, tired of proving their worth in a country that seemed determined to keep them on the margins. We just wanted to live, to thrive without constantly looking over our shoulders. Now, while America was busy turning inward, something interesting was happening in Jamaica. The economy was picking up, like really picking up. Tourism was booming, new industries were emerging, and suddenly there were opportunities back home that hadn't existed before. For Jamaicans abroad, especially those who'd left to seek better economic prospects, it was a game changer. Suddenly, returning home wasn't just about escaping a bad situation. It was about seizing a good one. It was about being part of Jamaica's growth story, about building a future for themselves and their families in the land they loved. I mean, have you seen the beaches in Jamaica, the food, the vibes? Yeah, America's got its perks, but it's hard to beat the allure of home. Now let's talk about something a little less tangible than economics, something closer to the heart. See, for many Jamaicans abroad, there's always this longing, this feeling of saudade, as the Portuguese call it, for the place they call yard. It's the smell of jerk chicken on a Sunday afternoon, the sound of reggae music drifting through the air, the warmth of family and community. It's that feeling of belonging, of being surrounded by people who get you, who speak your language, who share your history. And no matter how long you've been away, that connection never really fades. For some Jamaicans, the events of 2016 were a wake-up call. They realized that life was too short to spend it yearning for home when they could be living it. They wanted to come home. All right, let's talk about healthcare, or as I like to call it, the American obstacle course, where the finish line is bankruptcy. Look, we all know the US healthcare system is complicated. It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while riding a unicycle on a tightrope. For many Jamaicans, especially those with families, the rising cost of healthcare in the US was a major push factor. Deductibles, co-pays, out-of-pocket expenses, it's enough to give you a migraine, which, ironically, you can't afford to treat. Meanwhile, back in Jamaica, there's a public healthcare system that, while not perfect, provides affordable access to essential services. So you see the dilemma. Stay in America and risk financial ruin over a sprained ankle, or return to Jamaica where healthcare is a right, not a privilege? Health is wealth, and sometimes you have to go home to find both. Now, let's talk about the cost of living, because let's be real, it's not just about the rent, though that's a whole other episode. We're talking about the everyday expenses that slowly drain your bank account like a leaky faucet. In places like New York, London, Toronto, cities with large Jamaican diasporas, the cost of living is, well, how do you say it politely, bonkers. Rent is sky high, groceries cost an arm and a leg, and don't even get me started on childcare. Meanwhile, back in Jamaica, the cost of living is, dare I say it, more manageable. Sure, it's not cheap, but it's not going to give you heart palpitations every time you swipe your debit card. For many Jamaicans, the math was simple. They were working their tails off just to make ends meet, with little left over to enjoy life or save for the future. They wanted a better quality of life, a chance to actually enjoy the fruits of their labor. Chapter 7, From Remittances to Returning, Building a Nation, Brick by Brick. Now let's talk about something close to my heart, giving back. See, for generations, Jamaicans abroad have been sending money back home, supporting their families, investing in their communities. These remittances, they're a lifeline, a testament to the love and loyalty Jamaicans have for their island. But what if you could do more than just send money? What if you could contribute your skills, your knowledge, your experience to building a better Jamaica? They weren't just returning for themselves, they were returning for Jamaica. It's like that old saying, it takes a village. Well, these returning Jamaicans, they're coming home to help rebuild the village, brick by brick, dream by dream. Chapter 8, Safe Haven, the appeal of political stability. Now let's be real, politics can be messy. It's like watching a reality TV show, except the stakes are way higher and the people are way less interesting. But for many Jamaicans abroad, watching the political circus in their adopted countries was more than just entertaining, it was concerning. The polarization, the division, the erosion of trust in institutions, it was enough to make you want to move to a deserted island. Meanwhile, back in Jamaica, things were, well, relatively stable. For Jamaicans seeking a more predictable and, dare I say, sane political environment, returning home was an attractive option. They wanted a break from the constant drama, the outrage, the feeling that their country was on the verge of imploding. Chapter 9, From Don't Go to Welcome Home, Shifting Perceptions of Safety. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say the myth that often precedes us, safety in Jamaica. Look, every country has its challenges, and Jamaica is no different. But the image of Jamaica as a dangerous, crime-ridden island, that's outdated, my friends. In recent years, Jamaica has made significant strides in improving safety and security. The government has implemented targeted initiatives, communities are working together, and the results are showing. Jamaicans who've returned home are sharing their experiences, challenging the stereotypes, and showing the world a different side of Jamaica. They're showing the world that Jamaica is more than just headlines. It's a place where you can live, work, and raise a family in safety and security. Chapter 10, Finding Yard Within, the personal journey home. Now, for many Jamaicans, returning home wasn't just a practical decision, it was a deeply personal one. It was about rediscovering their identity, reconnecting with their roots, and finding a sense of fulfillment that had eluded them abroad. They were tired of the rat race, the pressure to conform, the feeling of being a small fish in a big pond. They wanted to come home and be themselves, to live life on their own terms, to create a legacy for future generations. For some, it was about retirement. For others, it was about starting a new chapter. Whatever their reasons, these returning Jamaicans shared one thing in common: a deep love for their island and a belief in its potential. The Jamaican homecoming, a new beginning. So, there you have it, the Jamaican return. It's a story about resilience, about love for one's country, about the enduring pull of home. It's about choosing happiness, choosing peace, choosing to build a future in the land that gave you your roots. Now, this influx of returning Jamaicans presents a unique opportunity for the Jamaican government. By implementing policies that support these returnees, from streamlining the repatriation process to providing incentives for investment, Jamaica can harness this wave of talent and resources to fuel its growth. So, tell me, what are your thoughts? Share your experiences in the comments below. Let's continue the conversation.